watch this, so don't feel bad about the small in-person turnout. So do your best, be energetic and excited, pretend there's a giant roaring crowd. Your answers are really important.
Yep, people are definitely viewing the videos. Cool. So with that, welcome to the Midwest National Advisory Council Regional Forum. We have 4 candidates here tonight, and I will ask the first question, and then I'll ask each candidate to introduce themselves and then answer the first question. So the first question for the crew tonight is, what's your overall top priority for the National Advisory Council? And we'll start with Christy.
Hi, I'm Christy Leach. I am from Chicago. I'm with Uptown Codes, a very brand new brigade there in Chicago. I think that a great starting point would be to have better communication with the brigades from Code for America San Francisco mothership with the brigades, just helping the brigades to understand the relationship between Code for America and San Francisco and the brigades, and just having kind of consistent, even repetitive communication about what that is, what our new vision and value statements are. I know that as someone who's a member of 2 groups who have been talking about whether or not to join Code for America this year, that was kind of nebulous, what the benefits were, both the material benefits and the kind of softer benefits of being involved with Code for America. And then even when I was at Code Congress, I heard some confusion about that from existing brigades. So just taking some care with that communication and having it be consistent, and having there be integrity in taking the feedback from brigades as well, and making sure that folks get to see that reflected in the messaging coming from home office.
Awesome. Thank you, Christy. Next, how about Nehemiah?
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Nehemiah Dacris, and I am the brigade captain or co-captain of the St. Louis Brigade, known as Open STL. And I think that the top focus of the National Brigade, the NAC, the National Advisors Council, is to reduce friction for all of the other brigades, right? So like Christy mentioned, there are several brigade resources that many of us didn't know about. I mean, you mentioned the relationship that was maybe a bit nebulous, but so are the resources and what the National Brigade Network provides the individual brigades, right? So I think we need to improve that communication, maybe, yeah, clarify that relationship, but like in general, improve how we leverage those resources, right? So we have lots of in-kind donations. We have lots of brigade accounts that we have not promulgated to the rest of the brigades. And so we need to improve how individual brigades leverage those things. From just, for example, my experience trying to get the CARTO in-kind donation grant has been a bit slow. It's been months. And my job as brigade captain is to get the volunteers that have volunteered their time and effort to our projects to help them get their jobs done. I think I owe them that, and I need to be empowered to do that better. And so that should be the primary focus of the NAC.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's go to Margot.
Hi, I'm Margot Spring. I'm one of the co-captains of Civic Day Alliance. It is the brigade in Louisville, Kentucky. Our primary focus for our brigade, and I think that would be applicable for the NAC, the regional NAC overall, is civic tech education. The education as far as like civic tech skills go for people in the community, because the whole point is to leverage people in our community, to empower them to solve their problems with government and their community problems, and incorporated into that diversity and transparency from our government. Like, we would like not just to open the data, but we would like to open our government in Louisville and hopefully Kentucky, and then regionally overall. Like, open data is a great place to start, but open, like, just the data, that's not the end all to be all. We would like to see the transparency and accountability be leveraged across all areas of government and to all of our government, elected and appointed officials. And a big part of that is educating the community on what the brigade does and getting them involved in the brigade. Like, once people realize what civic tech is and what civic hacking is, they're like, oh, it's not what we thought. We can do this. But they just need the right workshops and the right skill set, so.
Cool, thank you. And Janet, what's your top priority for the NAC?
Hello, I'm Janet Michaelis. I'm co-captain of Code for Dayton. Although I haven't lived here my whole life, I went to school in Colorado, and I lived in San Francisco and went to school in San Jose too. So I agree with everyone who's talked about communication, sort of the top down, bottom up, sideways. I think that's been echoed everywhere. But I would like to work on clarifying the range of activities that are appropriate for brigades, because we are volunteers and you have to work with whoever shows up, and what skills they have, what passions they have, and how do you fit that into the larger framework. I use the scout model a lot. Any other scouts out there? That there's a brand and there's a framework for scouting that scales, and people can make their troop or patrol be whatever it is with the volunteers that they have that show up. And there's a range of things that's going to be very different in a small rural group or in an urban group, but it still all clearly fits in that bigger umbrella of scouts. So that's kind of how I think about Code for America and the various brigades, but there needs to be a range and an adaptability, but it all still fits the brand.
Awesome. Thank you, Janet. For our next question, so you are all very much involved with your local brigade. So what's a learning from your local brigade that you'd like to apply at the national level? And we will start with Nehemiah.
Okay. So one learning has been that while a brigade typically represents a city is sometimes could only be termed as one municipality out of many in a county, right? But sometimes that's not a lot of people, considering the region or the scope that your brigade could have, right? So we've had to change it from being just acquiring a relationship with our city government to acquiring a relationship with our community and our whole region. So that's required us to reach out to the various municipalities and sort of engage the other NGOs in our organization, in our region, that also realize that they can't just be, for example, in our case, the St. Louis, NGO. This NGO can't just serve St. Louis, because that's not representative. They can't just serve, St. Louis City, because that's not representative of St. Louis County. There's so many people who move in and out. That's why on any census and the television viewing area, they call it St. Louis metropolitan area because it's not just St. Louis City. And so that lesson is probably something I could apply to other brigades across the nation and across the planet, and that you have to recognize your scope and fill out, like an octopus filling a space. You've just got to acquire the shape of your community and take that into account.
Awesome. Thank you. Margot, what's a learning from your local brigade that you'd like to apply at the national level?
So there are two. They both center on communication. Even if your local brigade, we had an instance recently where we didn't necessarily see eye to eye with one of our government partners. And I learned personally that the way in which you address such concerns can have a positive or negative impact on your brigade locally. So that is something that would be a good thing to look at, and how can you hold your local government accountable to being open and transparent, right, and to working towards those goals without upsetting them so that they're willing to, remain in partnership with you. That is a big learning experience we've had lately. And that kind of ties into our other, it's like communication and documentation. We didn't have basically any procedure in place for power transition in our local brigade. It was very haphazard. There was no documentation. And that has caused us to have a lot of growing pains, which hopefully the next round of people who are elected in with the provisions we put in place and that we're continuing to work on won't have those same, pitfalls that we experienced. So.
Awesome. Thank you. Up next, Janet, what's a learning from your local brigade that you'd like to apply at the national level?
Well, when we look at things that we're interested in trying to help solve, to realize that we're not the first people that saw this problem or are trying to work on it, and to look around for what's there and what's working and find someone to partner with that is maybe undersourced. That's been the most effective thing that we found. And when we showed up and said, we're hackers, we're here to help, no one really knew quite what to do with us. So we've learned that we need to go hunting for our opportunities, and we use the interests and passions of the people who are showing up to our meetups. What do they care about? Because again, with volunteers, the motivation has got to be internal most of the time. So if food deserts is something they're passionate about, then we look around for an opportunity to pair them with somebody else who's working on that, who's doing something useful, but doesn't have technical support, perhaps. So, we have to find our own opportunities and make ourselves useful and help solve the problems, because there are other people already working on them.
Awesome. Thank you. And Christy from Chicago, what's a learning from your local brigade that you'd like to apply at the national level? You're muted.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, so I think something that came to light in working with community groups or social services groups, I guess specifically, and individuals infected by incarceration who were working within those community groups, was that it really matters who gets credit for the things that we work on, how we attribute that work, how we launch that work, how we benefit from that work personally and as an organization. It affects our credibility. People are looking at that and judging our integrity by how we how we partner with the communities that we're building for and with. And I think that at a project level, that matters. And I think that, rolling up into the brigades, the projects that we work on, making sure that we are taking the time to communicate with each other about what the goals for the project are and how we want to promote it and how we want to involve our intended audience. And then it rolls up from the brigades to Code for America as well. How does Code for America's brand benefit from brigade projects and from the people involved in them? I think that's something that we need to take the time to talk about. We've been talking about it at the brigade level and also within Shy Hack Night. And it's something to be aware of and to have some processes around.
Yeah, definitely awesome. Cool. The next question is around the larger civic tech movement. So Code for America is just really one part of the national and international civic tech ecosystem. How do you think specifically the brigade program should fit into that larger ecosystem? And we'll start with Margot.
Everybody needs to join Data for Democracy. I mean, that's a good start. I think it would be a really good fit for brigades and for Code for America in general if we could figure out a way to dialogue and work on at least one project with them. They are an online community. It's not nearly as organized as Code for America. Code for America's Slack is much more organized, and Code for America's emails are much more organized. There's a lot of stuff that Data for Democracy can learn from Code for America, but I also think there's a lot of things that Code for America can learn from Data for Democracy. When I think about an inclusive and welcoming space for basically like any group online, the first place I think of is Data for Democracy. So I think there's something to be said for taking the best of like both those models and meshing them together. And, they also have maybe partners. I'm not sure of all the press partners and stuff like that Code for America has at a national level. I know that we have some pretty heavy hitters, but they also have people on board over there like Bloomberg, stuff like that. And they're really interested. We just kicked off, did a launch pad. I stole Code for America's terminology for that. A launch pad for the Data Science Code of Ethics today. That it was a lot of fun. I think that, so maybe some cross-pollination between those two online communities could be a start, something similar.
Awesome. Thank you. Janet, how do you think the Code for America Brigade program should fit into the larger civic tech ecosystem?
Well, we struggled with our identity. So our brigade is about 4 years old, and we were trying to be all things to all people. And we realized there were other meetups and other groups where people could learn a particular programming language or have a social hour, but that really we were here to hack for change. We wanted to make things change, and the activist part was what we wanted our brigade to mostly be about. And that stems in part, we're a city of 750,000 metropolitan area, and we had 800 overdose deaths in our county last year. We have over 6,000 vacant and abandoned properties within the city limits, and we are under the gun here. And so we wanted to differentiate our brigade to doing things for the community in ways that could impact these problems that are very present in our lives. So I think that from our perspective, some of these other things seem like luxuries because the problems are so in our face all the time. But there needs to be span for you to do that. But the activist part, I think, is the heart and soul of what Code for America is about. I'm done.
Awesome. Yeah, so Christy, how do you think the Code of America program, or Brigade program, excuse me, should fit into the larger civic tech ecosystem?
Well, I think that it's important for us to be at the brigade level working with activists and community organizations and social services partners who already have ideas about how to tackle the issues, who are already experts in their fields and in their part of the city. I think that what Janet talked about, that your volunteers are going to come in with passion, and it's good to build on that and work with that energy. I think that where Code for America can be helpful, and also just people within your brigade who are already out networking and have those connections, is with introductions to those potential partner organizations, mentoring on how to partner with them, coaching sessions, just connecting us with case studies or other brigades that are working on similar projects, just supporting us in that way so that we can be connected to the activist and civic tech scene within our cities. That's it.
Awesome. And Nehemiah, how do you think the Brigade program should fit into the larger civic tech ecosystem?
Well, I think my answer would most line up with Christy, as the Brigade program should work as a stepping stone for new members who are potential activists, as Janet mentioned, right? Yeah, we would be an activist organization, individual brigades, but the Brigade program would allow a sort of pipeline from the community of potential activists to actually act, and then join the civic tech ecosystem that way. So then once you join the brigade, then you can decide whether you want to start an incubator or start another NGO, right? And it's sort of like the introductory class, and then you branch out, right? And then we work as educators, as the individual brigades work as educators or enablers, right? But the Brigade Network acts as sort of a lightning rod for all of this energy and channel it into the civic tech ecosystem. That's why I think the Brigade Network works.
Cool. Thank you all. So those were our 3 prepared questions. Do we have any questions from St. Louis, Abhi or Mohit? Any questions from y'all?
Hi, I'm Abhi. Some of you might have met me beforehand. I've done a little bit of work in Code for America in the past. So I'm curious for folks, and anyone can answer in any way. What's the brigade doing wrong right now? Like, what would you fix? What would you change?
Cool. And yeah, whoever is ready, just show your hand and I'll call on you. Margo.
So I would start with fixing the silo of information and kind of groupthink that happens in the Slack. It's difficult because, we've got so many channels and things like that. So it's difficult and maybe that is like one step toward what this regional NAC will be doing. We can have like separate channels broken out with each region, and invite, make sure that a problem that we had locally was that information was being siloed just to leadership. So in order to open that up, we have transitioned everything that was just posted to the captains, to core members, and to our general channel as well, which has like a couple hundred people in it, so that they all have the opportunity to vote. Like, this was the first opportunity I had to vote in a NAC election. Was this the first NAC election? I don't know. Was it? Is it? Yeah?
It's the second one.
It's the second one. So I didn't get a vote last year because I didn't know about it, you know? So I think that's a big, having kind of policies like best practices in place, like we use for software development, best practices of how to run your brigade and then run the brigades regionally, and then maybe the organization as a whole that we can all like agree on. So that information is openly and transparently shared, not just our code base. Our code base is all on GitHub. Like, that's not a problem. You know, it's more of information as, I guess, how the sausage is made, maybe? I don't know.
Cool. Christy, you had your hand up.
I think this goes partly back to the communication thing we've been flagging for a lot of this session. But I think there is confusion about confusion, and maybe it's probably not overstating it to call it mistrust about where Code for America might be headed, because there have been some switch ups as to how projects are funded and supported, how brigades have money passed through to them. I guess that has changed, and some have felt it's changed abruptly at times. So when we look at the different parts of Code for America, it would be helpful to understand how building products rolls up into our vision statement, and how what part of our vision statement are we supporting by Code for America building products and making money off of products, as opposed to supporting brigades, and what kind of how might brigades participate in decision making about things like that in the future, and what should we expect in terms of funding projects. I think that I'm surprised that those things are so up in the air and so little known. And I'd like to see us do a better job at involving brigades in those discussions and just communicating what is already known about those things.
Great. Yeah. Janet.
Well, I wouldn't say that the brigades are doing something wrong, because this is an evolving process. This is a new idea. And again, we're relying on volunteers. So when you get to the point of communication, we've struggled with this. We put it out there, but not everybody will use Slack. And so you think that you put the information in front of everyone, but volunteers, you know, they just aren't going to go on Facebook or whatever. And so it's trial and error, and we haven't found an ideal solution. Slack works in a lot of ways, but we have the count that our messages drop off the back, so we don't have them archived. So I think people are doing a good job of trial and error, and so we're all still here, and we need to keep at it.
Awesome, thank you. And Nehemiah, do you have a response?
Oh,
It's on mute. Sorry.
No, you're good.
no, I am muted. Unmuted. Okay. Sorry for dropping the laptop earlier. All right. So I think I agree the most with Janet in that it's not so much we are doing anything profoundly, ultimately wrong. It's just that, like, you know, there are a couple of organizations out here figuring out what the right thing to do actually is. And so it's good that we're coming into this with an open mind. So I think we've identified a couple of things that don't work. And I think both of you, Margot and Erie, have identified a couple anti-patterns, right? So we can just stop doing those things. And then we can advise others to stop doing those things. Just, you know, yeah. I think I've answered.
Cool. Awesome. Erie, our fearless network leader, do you have a question?
Yes. So as a member of the NAC, part of what you'll get to do is to design what support for brigade captains and professional development looks like. So if you had a magic wand and like money in the space-time continuum was not a constraint, and you could get one piece of professional development to every brigade captain, what would that be?
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, everyone definitely think on it. And when you're ready, just raise your hand. I'll call on you.
Sorry, to repeat, the question is infinite time and money, right?
Yeah. This is a magic wand, how you would set brigade leaders up.
That doesn't make you explode.
Luigi, I think Christy raised her hand.
Oh, sorry, Chrissy.
So it's hard to pick just one. So it's a tie between this and but I think having somebody who has some training in conflict resolution is a helpful thing to have. And I think right up there with that would maybe be some project management training. But as Margot said, how you deal with your conflicts either with your community partner or your government partner or folks who are your volunteers, it matters. It's part of having that good communication and maintaining trust.
Awesome. Anyone else?
So the magic wand for the one, I have to pick one thing. Okay.
Feel free to choose multiple, but you have to choose a top one.
Okay, I guess my top thing would be to make sure that our leadership involved was primarily composed of people from marginalized groups. That would be my number one ask. And then that they would have like a codified set of best practices, to use as a guide, really.
Cool. Janet.
I'm going to ask for a clarification, Erie. Could you give me some examples of professional development that you're thinking of?
You could go to the Harvard Executive Education course on digital services in government. You could go to the Experiencing Poverty live action workshop where you learn what it's like to have a fixed amount of money and try and make it through a week. Or it could be things like both Margot and Christy said. I think professional development doesn't have to be a formal course. It could be opportunities like speaking on stage at Summit. There's fortunately or unfortunately for you, it's a pretty wide bucket.
Okay, thanks.
You have one more, Christy? Yeah, go ahead.
I think I'll put a finer point on mine and say that or maybe it's a broader point, but having facilitation training, how to facilitate different types of meetings, how to facilitate, a leadership meeting so that people get to participate, people who are introverts get to participate, people who are not present get to participate, and then, things like facilitating a design critique so that you get the kind of input that you need from your partner or from your subject matter experts. So facilitation skills.
Yeah, awesome. Janet, Nehemiah?
The design workshop is probably where I spend that infinite effort. Because, just pulling cities to that design effort, which is if I remember, the overarching problem with cities writ large is because they've evolved over so long, right? We're talking about cities here. Because they've evolved over centuries, they each have, they've got, every person who comes in anew has to like relearn the whole design process. I mean, the whole process of that city. They have to relearn the city itself. And so like, just going through design workshops with your city leaders and all the constituencies that actually contribute to the governance. So I guess like NGOs that actually do have the city's ear and stuff like that, and even brigades, right? I think typically what a brigade tends to wind up doing is dragging city leadership through the design IDEO process. But that design workshop would be worth a lot. Mm-hmm. And just to have infinite money and just having the expertise to run that design workshop properly, to get a city leader to do a journey map, right? That kind of thing is what we wind up doing for city leaders to get them to understand how to deliver services better. Cool. So that'd be the most value, I think.
Awesome. Janet.
Okay, so I'm going to steal that idea and say if we had all this money, I would like to bring some of our local leaders to Summit. If we had the money to bring them so they could see, just see the energy that is just isn't a pocket of a few loony people here in town, but that there is a much bigger picture and have them experience that. And they're not going to ever come there on their dime, I don't think so. Thanks for that, Nehemiah.
Cool. And
so, yeah, I'd like to take I posted a link in the chat, but I'd like to take the progressive stack in standing for inclusive teaching, like that format of a workshop, and make that mandatory for every single brigade, and incorporate that in every single in-person event that we do. If I could have like the magic wish wand, that would probably be my number one, actually. It's been really helpful. We're going to implement it in a multi-site event next weekend, so I will report back to y'all and let you know how it goes.
That's great.
And you're sure that magic wand doesn't make you explode if you're not a bright? I'm sorry, that movie was awful. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you for the reference. I think that's, oh, hey, Jerry. Thanks for joining us from San Diego. I think that's it. We got some extra questions in, and we can call it a forum. So thank you everyone again for participating. If you're watching this recording at home, voting is open until this Friday, so please vote. And like I said, we're going to make this recording available online either tonight or tomorrow. So please direct your brigade members to watch it and to go vote. So with that, I'll just say thank you everyone for an awesome, awesome forum. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and your knowledge and your ideas and links and pointers to awesome things. And we will hopefully be seeing each other very soon in the near future. Bye, everyone.